Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. Strangle your demons and let's go.
Y'all need Jesus!
Whoa, ho, ho. Whoa, ho, ho, ho. Whoa, ho, ho, ho. Whoa, ho, ho, ho. Everybody was kung fu fighting. Boop, 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 boop. Those cats were fast as lightning. Fast as Fauci, fast as Joe. Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. I am your host, Eric Hellberg. And damn it, I wish we still had Einstein here. But men, we can be passionately curious about all things pertaining to men. How in the hell did we get here, and where is it that we want to go? My God, the world is ablaze. Literally. Northern Israel, Gaza, Palestine, whatever you want to call it these days, is on fire. It ain't just the IDF and it ain't just Hamas in the mix anymore, is it? We've got Hezbollah firing rockets. Launched a damn blaze over there, some type of forest fire. If you look at the satellite imagery, you see the lights of the adjacent cities and fire engulfing everywhere. That's what I feel like. My hair is on fire. Where do you begin, man? Where do we even begin? And since we're talking about that proximity, where those countries converge right on the border with Egypt, it makes me wonder, did Joe Biden want the IDF to stop chasing Hamas into Rafah? Because we now know that there is a concentric and vast underground tunnel system, just like the one in Gaza, that runs all the way into Egypt. But in Egypt, we have good Muslims, right? We're kind of friendly with Egypt, right? Even though they've attacked Israel in the past, that was in the late 60s. But that is where the good old Muslim Brotherhood is. So has Egypt been helping Hamas? Are we actually fighting both the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas with the IDF? Who was it that was tight with the Muslim Brotherhood? In fact, that's who took over all the countries whereby we deposed rulers of their nation. My God, it was the Muslim Brotherhood. And who was president at that time? Let me guess. I am going to fundamentally change America. And the Muslim call to prayer is one of the most beautiful sounds on the planet. Well, that was good old Barry Soetoro, a.k.a. Barack Hussein Obama. Just food for thought. I'll tell you what I'm also thinking about. You notice how they closed the court, other than a few caricatures and sketches, when things started being discussed about Epstein. More specifically, all the frolickers with Epstein's folly. We know his commander-in-chief of the operation was good old Slick Willie Clinton. But when names started being talked about in Democratic circles, because, yeah, we've got some malfeasance on the Republican side. No one can ever deny that. But as far as the petties and the petties and the wetties and these are Democratic scumbags. So that got closed down. Then it got me thinking, did you know the same thing happened? And of course, he's in the Supermax over there in Florence, Colorado, can't communicate with anyone. But I wondered, how in the hell did they ever get El Chapo? How in the hell did they ever get Pablo Escobar? Guys that operated with impunity. We could not have gotten them if we wanted to get them. Something had to happen. But when you disrupt the pipeline or a payment isn't made somehow, then we can get you. Did you know that his courtroom was also closed off when he started naming names, good old El Chapo, of people in the Democratic Party that he had paid off? all of a sudden, the press was no longer allowed entry. On that same note, and you know I did an episode that released for yesterday, which would have been Monday, on Stephen Paddock. I talked to you about the surveillance state, not that in which we live, which is true, but how heightened it is in the town of Las Vegas, especially in those casinos, because the house never loses, does it? Unless you're an algorithmic gambler, very intuitive like Stephen Paddock. Maybe that was a front for something. But we never saw any security footage, although we saw security footage of him bringing in multiple luggage bags over a period of many days. And it was actually one camera, two down. One camera was placed or was in place at the Mandalay Bay, 2 rooms down from his. Why didn't we see any security camera footage from the night of the shooting? Who went in and out of that room? He went, for God's sakes, for such a long period of time. But we never saw what was going on in that hallway. I guess no one was actually aware of what was happening, despite the ability to both record it and to see it. But we know that 9 other responding officers to the Bellagio Hotel, we could discernibly hear the gunfire, the rapid cyclic rate, and 2 veteran cops, previous veterans, said it was machine gun fire. But yet 30 minutes later, they were responding to the Bellagio Hotel, where 2 gunmen were seen going in and out. Windows burst, just like the Mandalay Bay. Stuff shot up. But for some reason, that security footage, I guess the Bellagio doesn't have the technological savvy of maybe one of the other hotels that wasn't involved. For some reason, all that footage at the Bellagio has disappeared. But the body cams did survive. Okay. So we tie in Paddock a little bit. And since the Arab world is ablaze, let me take a sip of my coffee here. Clear my throat. Ah, that's good. Thank you, Juan Valdez. Since the Arab world is ablaze, and we know that ISIS has reconstituted in this vacuum of security called Build Back Better, right? Biden, same thing. Biden said we are going to build back better. But our supermarket shelves are empty, record inflation. He had to release all of our Northeast fuel reserves to artificially depress costs because an election's coming up. We've been invaded by illegals. He's building back better. Of course, the world is completely engulfed in war. And do you remember back in the day, every time there was a bomb that went off, shootings, beheadings, ISIS was quick to take accountability for it. In fact, they relished it, right? We're responsible for this act. And you can pull up anything that you can remember, go back, get the big media's news footage. And yes, these things did occur, and ISIS claimed responsibility. Name me one time that ISIS claimed responsibility for some heinous act whereby it did not occur. Now, you can message me. You can get right into my website. You can message me via my episode. I'll discuss any of it with you. Never did ISIS claim that they were responsible for anything that did not happen. But did you know ISIS also claimed responsibility for the Stephen Paddock shooting? Maybe that's why we never heard about it again. Now, bear with me right here. Let's tie some things in. We now know that Hunter Biden will be on the Hill again. Opening statements in his trial begin next Tuesday. All right. Did you know when President Obama was going out of office, so January of 2017, he awarded good old Joe the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor. And I tell you, that's the first time that Joe Biden wasn't looking at his watch and standing at attention. Wasn't when he received dead bodies coming back from overseas, flag-draped coffins, when he's looking at his watch and dissing the families. No, he stood at attention. He was proud because that was basically an acknowledgement. You are just as good as me, Joe. No one has duped, screwed, effed the American people more than you, Joe. Here is your award, you sick bastard. But did you know shortly after that, a month later, both by then, President Trump was in office. So I guess that relegated Joe from vice president, where he had been for 8 years cutting deals with Ukraine and China. I guess that relegated him back to the lonely position of simply a senator from Delaware and his committee assignments therein. But for some reason, old Joe and Hunter, under the guise of commemorating the Sandy Hook massacre in February of 2017, did you know they slipped away from the crowds as they knew it would provide an adequate ruse? And went and met with a guy by the name of Zhu Zedong, Ding Dong, King Kong, Wu Dong, who gives a read a fortune cookie. I don't give a. But they had set up this meeting via a WhatsApp encrypted chat that originates out of China called WeChat. We now have the documentation of these correspondences. They will be made known unless some type of craziness happens next week when the Hunter Biden trial begins. And did you know what they met with Zudong, Ding Dong, King Kong for? They wanted an additional $10 million payment from a huge Chinese oil company. Isn't China our enemy, Joe? How long have you been fraternizing with the enemy, Joe? Moreover, if you were going to call Sandy Hook a massacre, which it was, without me looking it up, I believe 20-something children perished. It was heinous and gruesome, but that is a massacre. Why was Stephen Paddock's killing of 59 people, 851 injured, not a massacre? Why did it go away a couple of months after, never to be heard from again? Who was Stephen Paddock, really? Who was he working with, really? Who were his accomplices, really? Who were the other shooters, really? Why did all the footage disappear, really? And why did ISIS take credit for that attack when they have never taken credit for any attack that they did not either condone or have a hand in? Why was Islamic paraphernalia found in that room and we never heard another word about it? All right, take a breath. All right. Let's get our Zen back, although that's Japanese. Whoa, ho, ho. Whoa, ho, ho. I'm a better singer once I get going in the episode. Everybody was kung fu fighting. Okay, back to China. Back to China and the Chinese virus. Did you know Biden's been lamenting the fact that President Trump says when he gets in, he's going to push China for $10 trillion of reparations for what they did to us? Oh, yeah, baby. Biden doesn't like that. Those are his friends. All right, so let's backtrack and tie in the episode that I just released for today. This one that we're taping will go out tomorrow. So we have Fauci. Fauci's henhouse, the fox. The fox is guarding the henhouse. The man who was supposed to custody the coronavirus for us. Curtail the coronavirus for us. Critique the practices of the coronavirus was actually the creator of the coronavirus, and he had help. Because when Barry Obama took office, got his feet wet in 2009, by 2010, according to a report from the Commonwealth Fund, he increased the budgetary allowance directly to the National Institutes of Health under Fauci's purview and gave him an additional $1 billion for biomedical research. And to tie in the episode, that went on. Gain of function went on right here in the States until people caught wind of it and they shipped it offshore in 14 or 15. That's when it went to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And it went there after it had come into Fauci's budget. They then co-opted a not-for-profit out of Manhattan called Eco Health Alliance, sent them the funds, who then disseminated them directly to China. Now, China's our enemy. The Wuhan Institute of Virology is a Communist Chinese Party military medical biolab. And when the COVID shit really hit the fan, they took out their civilian director who was working under the auspices of the Chinese military, and they replaced her with a major general in the Chinese army. He had to oversee that lab, right? It is a Chinese military lab. And I told you that that virus was already cooked up. I told you that that virus was sitting latent, ready for release or dissemination worldwide at the proper time. Did it come out unintentionally? Did it come out deliberately? We can still patrol and we can still investigate that. But the fact is, that's where it came from. And it is now being admitted. Okay. So let's touch upon a few more sources. We know that both the National Review and the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, are definitely not stalwarts of conservative thought, but they have now released articles saying that Fauci lied. He knew exactly about the funding and he knew exactly about the research being conducted at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Did you know that Representative James Comer, Republican out of Kentucky, Representative Jim Jordan, Republican out of Ohio, have now issued a new statement saying much the same, and that Fauci lied in 2021 when Rand Paul quizzically questioned him when he actually knew the truth, and he was shut down by Fauci. That they had funded China, our mortal enemy, to conduct the research, perfect the virus, and then have it sitting in their stores ready. And this is going to come out because our little boo thing from our last episode, Tony Fauci, is going to have to go back before the hill after all this sworn testimony contrary to what he said then, to what we know now. Dr. Anthony Fauci, President Barack Obama, Vice President Biden, now president, cutting deals with China, our sworn enemy. But you used our sworn enemy to kill the American people and many people worldwide. Why are y'all so afraid of Trump coming in? Yeah, y'all would do to Trump what y'all did to JFK if you could. Just better technology, better security expertise, better information gathering so you can't off the dude. You would love to, but you can't. So you had to malign the dude. Anything that you can, because he's ready to upset your stinking, rotten apple cart. Oh, Biden, Barry, Fauci, Biden. How many people have you killed worldwide? And if the man who has lied to you before about where the virus came from, while the others sat silent, when he created it purposefully, right here in the U.S., shipped it overseas to China, Could it possibly be that you also lied to us about every one of those vaccines, their necessity, and what actually they would do to us? You lascivious, scathing rats, you are going to be taken into account. So until next time on the Comfortable in Chaos podcast, I bid you bon voyage, my burgeoning flock.
Until next time, like and subscribe to the Comfortable in Chaos